Welcome back, citizens of Tamriel. Last week I shared some of the cool motifs and other rewards you can pick up during Whitestrake Mayhem, ESO's premier PvP event. Many of you asked for advice on earning those event tickets during Mayhem, so today I wanted to share my secret weapon, my Turbo Rogue build. I'm Cal, and today's video will cover everything you need to know to go fast and avoid PvP during Whitestrake Mayhem. It's also useful for stuff like Overland travel, Dark Brotherhood quests, and daily writs, so stay tuned. Now, I originally created this build for travel and thieving, but over time I've found more and more uses for it. Today, it's probably the build I rock the most often, and it's actually great for getting in and out of PvP zones while avoiding most of that pesky PvP combat. My Turbo Rogue build will allow your character to move at maximum run speed while hidden, all with reduced detection range. Let's dive straight into it. Now, the three key sets for this build are Night Terror, Night Silence, and of course the Ring of the Wild Hunt. Night Terror is an overworld set that drops in Stormhaven, and we only need the 3-piece bonus to reduce our detection range and sneak cost. Night Silence is a craftable set with stations in Aridon, Glenumbra, or Stonefalls. We're using it for the 5-piece bonus, which allows us to ignore the movement speed penalty of Sneak. Then we have the Ring of the Wild Hunt, the mythic for this build that grants a 52% total bonus to movement speed while out of combat. You'll notice I'm using Divines as my trait on the armor, and that's to boost my Mundus stone effect. I'm using the Steed Mundus stone, and that grants a 10% bonus to movement speed, along with some health recovery by default, but that bonus is increased to 16% movement speed with 7 divine traits on your armor. There are also 3 champion skills that are relevant to this build, 2 in the craft constellation and 1 under fitness. Under craft, you'll want to make sure you have Steed's Blessing. That is a slottable, and you'll also want to make sure that you've invested in the out of sight passive. Under fitness, you'll want to have Celerity slotted. Steed's Blessing grants another 20% to movement speed, while out of sight decreases your detection radius, and Celerity grants another 10% to movement speed. Now, for those of you keeping track, with those champion abilities, Ring of the Wild Hunt, and the powered up Mundus buff, we are actually at a 98% bonus to movement speed. 100% is the cap, so if you select Bosmer as your race, you'll be moving at a full sprint at all times, even while sneaking. Alternatively, you could always go Khajiit, and while you won't quite have capped movement speed, you'll further reduce the range at which you can be detected by enemies. Khajiit is probably the best pick here, but I didn't want to have to make a new character, so it's Bosmer for me. Now, with this build, you should have a flex armor spot as well as flexible weapon slots. I happen to be using Vadishran's bow on the front bar and the Master's bow on the back bar, but you could literally slot any weapons. Since we're trying to avoid combat here, it doesn't really matter. You could also just go for the 5-piece bonus of the Night Terror set to add a little bit more health to the build. It comes with a retaliation proc as well, just in case you take some damage. For the armor flex spot, I typically go with a heavy chest piece of the trainee. A little extra health and armor might give you a couple extra seconds to react and pop a potion if someone does manage to track you down in Cyrodiil or the Imperial City. Speaking of potions, you might have noticed I'm using a fairly esoteric enchantment on my jewelry. That's right, this setup benefits from the alchemical amplification enchantment. One of the best ways to stay hidden is to keep potions of invisibility on your character. You can get roguish stealth drafts for free by speaking with Remain Silent. That is the Dark Brotherhood's shadowy supplier that you'll find in Outlaws' dens across Tamriel or in the headquarters of the Dark Brotherhood. Or you can craft your own invisibility potions while choosing additional effects. I prefer this essence of immovability as I primarily use these to slip away from enemies in PvP, so the immunity to disabling effects is very nice and a little health recovery is also nice. Now, alchemical amplification dramatically extends the effects of these potions, giving you more time to get away. This build will work for any class or any skill build. Nightblade has some nice synergy though, as you'll have access to the Shadow Cloak or Shadowy Disguise ability once you level it up. That adds another tool to your getaway kit. Beyond that, the other skills are really flexible, since again, the primary goal here is to avoid combat. But I tend to stick with single target damage skills and some utility skills, so I have a chance to fight back if I must. I'll go ahead and put the list of skills I have slotted for this build right now on screen in case you want to copy it exactly. Alright, I believe that just about covers it for the basic build. Let's talk a bit about Mayhem strategy. You can earn 3 tickets during Whitestrake Mayhem, 2 for completing either a Cyrodiil or Battleground daily quest, and a 3rd for completing an Imperial City daily quest. Now, in Cyrodiil, I typically opt for the Scouting quest. When you enter Cyrodiil, just look for the Scouting quest board, If you haven't completed the Intro to Cyrodiil questline, you may need to actually do that before you can access the daily quests. Scouting quests will task you with traveling to a specific objective somewhere out in Cyrodiil, and then you'll just need to take notes for a few seconds. You can use the Transit Shrine in the War Camp to travel to the keep or objective that is closest to the objective that you need to scout. Once you port in, just crouch to start sneaking and head out towards your objective. You'll probably want to avoid the roads and stay on the lookout for any roving warbands of enemies, and keep those invisibility potions at the ready. You might need to sneak through some close quarters, and that will make it a little bit easier for you. Once you've scouted your objective, simply use the Alliance War menu to enter an Imperial City campaign and save yourself the long run back to the war camp. Alternatively, you could always find some enemies to kill your character for a quick port back to camp. Once you get there, return to the board and hand in the quest. And that's it, you've got your 2 tickets. If you opt for the Battlegrounds daily quest, there are actually 3 random daily quests you can pick up by talking to Battlemaster Riven. Personally, I think the Show Contribution quest is the easiest, since as long as you give a little bit of effort in a deathmatch, you can usually complete that quest in 2 Battlegrounds, if not 1. If you get an objective-based match, it can be a little bit more difficult, but with this Turbo Rogue build, you actually make a great relic carrier. Score twice and you will have your 1,000 points of contribution done. Keep in mind, champion skills are disabled in Battlegrounds, and you can't pick up the relic or carry the relic while hidden, sneaking, or invisible. So what I do is I use this build to get in position, then grab the relic and run like. Just be sure to time it right and make sure that your team's relic is safe at home before you reveal your position. If you're struggling to get your contribution, you could always opt for the Complete 5 Battlegrounds daily quest. This will almost certainly be more time consuming, but it might be a good option if you are struggling to get those contribution points. If you don't get the quest you want straight away, just abandon and talk to Battlemaster Riven again, until you get the one that you want. Alright, so for your Imperial City daily, I recommend taking the ladder up to the Elven Gardens district. It's the one with the vines on it. The daily quest here will call for you to interact with several separate items in the district, then return to your faction base to hand in the quest. Now, I recorded this clip before the event started, so it's not too busy in the Imperial City, but during the event, I see we'll be absolutely crawling with enemies. Still, with the Turbo Rogue build, you should be able to sneak your way around and complete your daily quest, even if you get caught a couple times in the process. Just make sure to deposit all of your Telvar in the bank before you head out into the city so that you got nothing to lose. Also keep in mind that there will be extra instances of the Imperial City during the event, and you can always swap to another one if it's too busy in the first one you select. Finally, this is slightly less topical, but I did want to mention how much I actually love this build for overland travel, daily writs, general thieving, and of course Dark Brotherhood sacraments. The benefits for travel are obvious. Your character will be moving at max sprint speed at all times, and you can even sneak if you want to avoid combat with NPCs. The lower detectability range also makes it easier to complete daily pledges if they require you to do any sort of lockpicking, thieving, stealing, or using the Blade of Woe. Finally, I mentioned those Dark Brotherhood sacraments. They become a complete joke with this build. I used to struggle to make my getaway before the Overseer arrived, but no longer with the Turbo Rogue build. Thank you all so much for checking out today's video. I'm Calamon, and if you're interested in more Elder Scrolls Online guides, tutorials, and designs, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I do occasionally share videos on other topics, but with Necrom coming out soon, we've got even more ground to cover in Tamriel. As always, I have to give a massive thank you to my patrons, who make sure I can always afford another cup of coffee to fuel my late night video editing sessions. You can help support the future of this channel for just a couple dollars a month over on Patreon, and you'll get access to some bonus videos, including a sneak peek of my next ESO housing project, a home for Aarox. You can also help support the channel for free by hitting that like button on your way down to the comments section below, where I'd love to hear any suggestions that you might have to make my Turbo Rogue build even better. I'll be back again next week with another ESO video for you all. Until then, safe travels in Cyrodiil.